I'd like to welcome candidates for the 49th District Representative, position number 1. Incumbent Sharon Wylie, challenger Anson Service, if I pronounced that correctly.
You're fine. Yeah.
Okay. And challenger Scott Dalesandro.
Correct.
So, thank you for joining us. I'd like to introduce reporter Lauren Dake, who will be taking notes for a possible story, and she might try to grab you after the meeting. She won't be asking questions in this meeting. Also, just so you're aware, we are videotaping this for use on our website.
Cool.
So you've been forewarned. I'm Greg Jane, the editorial page editor here at the paper. I think we met everybody. I will be running the meeting, but Lou Brancosio and Doug Ness, also members of the editorial board, they will be asking questions as well. We'll try to keep things moving, so try to keep the answers on point, and hopefully everything will go smoothly. We'll start with some opening statements. Why should you be elected or re-elected to this position? What would you bring to the legislature? And we'll start with Sharon.
Thank you. Well, I'm Sharon Wylie, as you know. I was appointed in 2011 because of the experience I had both with the issues and with the process. I had represented Clark County as our government affairs person for about 8 years, as well as a couple of other counties from time to time. And so I was very familiar with how the legislative process worked. I was appointed because I could hit the ground running and that I knew how things worked. And that experience includes both business and government operations experience over a 35-year period. I've had 2 businesses. One is my consulting business, but I've also had a catering and restaurant business in my distant past. I'd also served in the Oregon legislature and had worked with legislators in other states, so I was familiar with a lot of the best practices and some of the worst practices in state government.
Okay, thank you. Anson?
My name's Anson Service, and I decided to run because I wasn't exactly satisfied with the representation we were receiving here in the 49th District. I've been kind of holding back for the last 6 years and watching things happen, seeing how things have been going. And during that time, I'd been in school, so I wasn't necessarily in a place to run either. So once I finished school, once I opened my practice, once I got to a point where I was like, I've got some great ideas, I've got some great solutions that I think maybe they haven't tried yet. I haven't heard of them trying them yet. I think I can implement them. The nice thing is the process and the issues that are here can easily be learned. You can learn about the process of being a legislator. So having that experience as a legislator is a great thing that I'll have to acquire. It's not necessary for a first-time legislator. Obviously, you can't have an experience as a legislator unless you've been a legislator. So it's one of those things that I've shown a real good history of being able to take on new information and learn the ropes quickly and efficiently.
Great, thank you. And Scott?
Scott Dalesandro, and I have a long career in the logistics business, and as it's winding down, I have seen what's going on lately, and our legislative they've just kind of not done things that's taken care of business, and I have some new ideas, and I would like to present them. I've done things logically in my past. I'm a good manager, totally new to this experience, and I believe that my outside business practices and experiences will bring something to the table that the voters haven't seen before. I'm not interested in any influence peddlers. I don't care about what PACs. I'm not worried about the NRA or anybody like that. I just talk about the people. That's what I'm here for.
Great. Well, thank you all. I'd like to start with Anson. You referred to, in some of your material, the staggering amount of money our government wastes in poor planning and mistakes.
Right.
Other than the CRC process, give me an example.
Let's say, for instance, the off-ramp that was built in the wrong location. That's a transportation snafu there. We've got lots of mistakes and waste of money with regard to the sale of state-run products, such as, like for instance, let's say I go to pay a fine or a fee or something like that, or let's say I get a fine and I don't pay it. So the state wastes so much money trying to collect that fine and fee from me sometimes that that it would be better if some other processes were implemented that would make that more of a streamlined process. But mostly I'm talking more about the transportation problems. That's the real staggering amount of money. You've got a giant tunneling machine, big Bertha, that's still stuck, and it's costing us more money each day than I can even fathom, spending in a lifetime. So there are a lot of those things. Those are things where proper planning could have avoided those mistakes.
Right, and I'm going to stop there
Go ahead.
because Scott, you also have talked about government waste. Can you come up with any other examples?
Well, I mean, it's like the Salmon Creek interchange off of 5 and 205. 5 years ago, we do 134th Street, and now we're spending another $140 million putting another exit entrance just a half mile up the road.
Yeah.
I mean, like, was there no thought to this whole process when the one was done? It's just such a waste, and it's every time you turn around. I mean, well, I shouldn't get into it, but even the local politics and the waste on how we're paying people to do 2 jobs. I mean, this is crazy. We got to stop all this stuff.
Talking about Senator Benton?
Yes.
You didn't
You
much
can't-
like that idea?
Paying him for 2 jobs?
Yeah.
No, you can't do it.
How about you, Ann? What do you think about that?
Yeah, you know what? It's such one of the jobs is an enormous job. I don't understand why you would want to take on another job that's an enormous job. I don't know how you could be effective in both roles.
You don't understand how they could?
I don't understand how anybody could be effective taking on. Like, I couldn't be senator and legislator at the same time.
But you could understand how he'd want to do it. Or
Well,
why he'd want to do it?
what a. You know what? No, I can't even understand why you want to. I really don't understand it. Seems like he'd be able to make more money in the private
As
sector.
long as somebody
though,
else
so.
opened up the Don Benton discussion, Sharon.
I understand he also manages rental houses and his consulting business as well. And I know that when I was a lobbyist up there, and I'm not ashamed of the word, he often was missing in action with his consulting business. The legislature was meant to be a part-time gig. I really admire people that keep their full-time jobs, take time off, and manage to do it. It hasn't worked very well with my kind of consulting business, and I'm fortunate that I can put my full attention to it.
Let me get to another topic that's pretty hot right now in the city of Vancouver, and that's the proposed oil terminal down at Fort Vancouver. And I know that some or all of you might like to go on at length on this particular issue, and although you can go on for a little while on this particular issue, I would like a yes or no answer. Knowing what you know now, would you agree to putting in that proposed oil terminal when it starts?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Knowing what I know now, no, because there's not enough information. You need more information before you do that. I would like it, though, if it can be done safely, but I don't know that yet. So
if you had to vote now, you vote no.
Well, absolutely, yeah, because you can't vote on something you don't know about. So there's too much biased
You don't think
information.
people ever vote on something they don't know about? Alright,
That's my own personal thought. I wouldn't, but
Okay.
Positively no.
Okay.
Speaking of business, and Sharon, you voted against the $8.7 billion tax break for Boeing. Why?
A couple of reasons. For the last 50, 75 years, or however long Boeing has been here, they have enjoyed enormous tax breaks. One of the first things I learned when I moved to the state way long time ago was that Boeing had a lot of members of the legislature, and they would take their legislative check and just trade it and get their regular paycheck. And they didn't pay sales tax on their out-of-country sales. They've had a lot of breaks over the years. We finally got a bill passed over great resistance from the other side of the aisle, I might add, to review the tax breaks. Right now, the chair of the Revenue Committee and our treasurer are the only ones that get to know whether or not that business even needs that tax break in order to survive. And so we finally passed a review process to make sure that those tax breaks, which take money from the taxpayers, and they quick pick winners and losers, and we don't even know whether they're necessary to keep that business in place. And it's not just Boeing; it's everything from Bull Seaman to whatever. And what they did with that bill was that they managed to bypass the review process for all those other tax breaks that had no strings attached. I don't want any jobs to leave our state. Nobody would in their right mind. But they did not need my vote. It was more than a protest vote. But they bypassed any scrutiny on a whole lot of other tax breaks that they've been enjoying for 50 years.
Anson, how would you have voted on that?
That's a good question. I was under the impression that you voted no because you didn't know enough about it. Was that not the case?
No, I knew a lot about it.
Oh, okay. All right. Must have been something else, which I would actually applaud you for, because if you don't know enough about it, you shouldn't be voting on it, I guess, one way or the other. But I probably would have voted to keep them in, because would it have kept those jobs here? I think it probably would have. What's better, to have more industry in the area, or to push them out and go elsewhere? So I'm all for keeping the industry and giving the tax breaks if it's going to keep the jobs here. What's the alternative? Now you got fewer people with jobs, fewer people paying taxes, fewer teachers, fewer firefighters. It goes on and on. So
Scott?
I would have voted no also. Boeing gets too many breaks. I mean, I found one when I was looking at our company building a new warehouse, where they have a break for computer sales. If they buy a computer, they get a break. Why should they get a break for computers? We're talking about education and all this. Why should Boeing not have to pay sales tax on computers? But we do. Our school teachers do. Our educators do. It's just not fair. They get enough.
Scott, you have advocated creating trade schools to teach specific skills.
Yes.
If in the legislature, would you propose a bill to do that? How many schools? How much would that cost?
I don't have a ballpark figure, and I really wouldn't want necessarily for the taxpayer to eat that cost. I think we can give enough tax credits to businesses to start up their own thing. I mentioned the Northwest Rail Institute over there because I'm in the same business park as they are. And they're doing a tremendous job with a very small budget. And I don't believe they're getting any federal or state funds to do that. And they're creating educational opportunities for kids and young people. Actually, there's some older people there too. But they're creating work experiences for people to go out there and get these jobs with the BNSF and companies like that. And I think we can do that for a lot more industries. Welders and bricklayers, everything. We need more trades.
I understand that this point I'm about to bring up is out of your wheelhouse, but I'd still like your opinion on it. Recently, the Vancouver City Council gave the city manager a 17%, $30,000 a year raise. With knowing what you know about that situation, would you have agreed to that? Now, start with Scott.
Well, coming the day after they said they had a budget shortfall, it was kind of ironic and insulting. I don't technically live in the city of Vancouver. I would be a lot more upset if I did, but Eric he may be a great gentleman. He took the job 3 years ago, just like I took my job 10 years ago, and this was the starting salary. It was comparable at the time. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to make sure Eric doesn't bolt the city, but if you don't have the money, you don't have the money.
So you would have said that's a no?
That's a no.
no as well, for the exact same reasons. I don't think it's requisite to pay people more when we're already at a budget shortfall. So.
I'm an HR person who's done a lot of salary surveys. I know that Eric is a really fine manager. It is the job of the city council to decide what he's worth. The optics are bad. There's no question about it because of the budget. The budget shortfall. The budget shortfall is structural. If he left and took another job today, they wouldn't be able to attract they probably wouldn't be able to attract an equivalent level of experience without paying what the market is for that particular position. And then they would have to decide whether somebody less experienced is qualified enough, or whether they would need to pay more money.
So is that a yes or a no?
I didn't look at all the criteria. I'm not on the city council. I probably would have phased it in and tried to stay close to market. But a lot of cities take pride in paying a little bit below market, but then they lose people. They call themselves a training ground for other cities.
Okay, I think I got an answer, but I'll take it.
If it was a simple, we wouldn't be debating if it was simple.
But here's the thing. The thing is, and I understand you're not on the city council, but at the end of the day, they don't have the luxury that you just had, which is basically not really giving a direct answer. They're going to either have to say, I'm going to agree, this is what's on the table, I'm either going to have to agree with it or disagree with it. And I'm asking you that question under that circumstance to not have the luxury of trying the middle ground that answer. You're faced, they were faced.
I'll give you a more direct answer. I probably would have held back on any raises at that level, at that amount, anything that large, until there was a proposal to address the structural shortfall of the city.
Right, so you would have been forced to have voted no.
But I probably would have given him a raise because he hasn't had a raise, and I'd want to recognize that kind of performance.
Right, but not necessarily that raise at this point.
Probably not, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Anson, let's say you're in the legislature next year, and you guys have to come up with a lot of money to meet the McCleary mandate.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How much money do you need to come up with, and where will it come from?
Well, it all comes down to priority, and you've heard this before, that many people, including myself, think that education should be moved up to be the first priority of funding. So that would get funded right off the bat, but that would leave us with a shortfall of $3+ billion to make up for if you want to keep up all the other programs that are in
so
going
what
on
would
right
get
now.
cut?
Yeah, so that's the question. What would get cut? It's the ones that are lowest priority. It changes from year to year. So
what do you
knows?
think those should be?
I have no idea, but I do know that there are two different ways that you can make up that shortfall. One is by cutting programs. That's one way you can do it, or at least shaving down programs. But the other one is to increase revenue, and there are several ways that other cities have increased revenue. I mean, it's going to be one of those things that can't be it's like in the mental health field, when you're doing counseling, your last resort is medication. You want to do therapy, you want to do environmental changes, you want to exhaust every possible option before you resort to putting foreign objects in the body, or when you resort to medication. And to me, tax increases are the last resort, not the first answer to everything. And there are things that they haven't tried yet that I would love to see them try. I'd love to see them increase sales of state-owned products like the park services, permits, fishing, hunting licenses. When those come due, nobody knows that they're going to be expiring. Why not put a plan in place to remind people? Why not have an easier opportunity for people to pay money to the state for those services? Such as like Amazon's got it down with their one-click offering, very easy. When you want to go pay a fine, it's make it easy to pay a fine.
But you're not suggesting that we're going to have some genius answer to fishing permits and licenses, and somehow or another that's going to get us out of this mess we're in?
Well, if you're going to say it like that, no. Dude, the state. No, that was one of the hundreds of things that the state offers that are for sale.
Here's the thing with your hundreds of things.
Yeah.
If you can't name them, you ain't got game.
Do you want to stay here all day so I can name every one?
Yeah, let's stay for at least 5 minutes.
Oh, come on. You know better than that, Lou. What are you trying to do? You trying to call me out on this one?
Yeah, I'm calling you out.
All right, so listen. You got the state-run items we can increase. I said that was one. Listen, I said that was one.
What is it?
Here.
Those are called fees. Some people think they're taxes.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. So let's go for make it easier to pay fines, fees, and taxes.
Okay,
make
give me
it
a dollar
easier.
amount on that.
Hang on. Less time trying to hunt people down to pay past due fees, adding
Dollar
penalties, making them mad. Wait. Increase marketing to sell state-sold items.
What's that?
Remind-
what's
hang
a
on.
state-sold item?
It's like the forest passes.
Okay.
You know, that's one other thing.
So you've made $184 so far now.
Come on. How about this one? Allow advertising for businesses to be on city and state items. That's an option. Some cities have done it. They've made a lot of money. In fact, the USPS does it right now.
How much money?
USPS does it right now.
I'm looking for numbers.
Listen, I'm trying to give you some ideas here.
No, I'm looking for money.
And that's not the last one. Increasing fines. If you up the fines for texting while driving, up the fines for drunk driving, up the fines for all these things. So if you want tax raises as your first thing, then that's your thing.
No. But what your thing is, have we gotten to $1 billion yet?
No, we haven't.
Well, how are we going to get to $1 billion?
Listen, I'm trying to tell you.
No,
I'm trying to tell you. No, what you did is you cut me off and you're trying to hold me to the thing for one thing that I said.
Give me all the things.
Why do you want all the things right here in this? I'll tell you what, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to email him an entire list of things that I think that you can increase the fines on, the fees in, and that you could sell that are state products, and I'll send you the 3,000-page memo.
Okay, and you're going to...
If that's what you want me to do, that's what I'll do.
There's going to be a dollar amount on that.
If you'd like that, I can...
I would
No,
like
you know what? Actually, hang on. I'm not going to waste all my time trying to put dollar amounts, but I'll ballpark it for you.
Okay.
If you want.
All right.
Because isn't that important? You've got to research these things first.
Sure.
You have to research these things
I
first.
thought you might have done that for us.
And all right, come on now. No, I understand it though. He's a commentator and he's supposed to come in here and do this, so it's totally fine.
No, we're just trying to find $3 billion.
No, I totally get it.
Of...
So my answer is you do all the other things first, which there are several things that you can do first. And then at that point, if there's nothing left, then you have to look at the other things that are available.
Well, and my point on that
Does that make sense?
Come January, the legislature is going to meet, and they're going to have 4, 5, 6 months to come up with $3 billion. You aren't going to have time to look at all these fees, all these different assessments,
well, in that case,
and see whether that's going to add up
I totally get what you're
$3 billion.
saying. I get what you're saying. So in that case, come January, you're going to have to make massive cuts to other programs. What they are, I couldn't tell you right now.
And so you would look at that before tax increases.
Well, that's just because it has to be done right away. What have they given us, like 2 years left? They're ready to hold legislatures in contempt because they haven't done anything yet on this. I mean, they've done $1.3 billion, which is great. Mm-hmm. However, it's not enough. They're not meeting that state court mandate. Right. They're not doing it. And so Lou's trying to beat me up here for coming up with some more options. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm trying to beat you up for you not coming up
there,
with
he
a
said it.
dollar amount.
I'm trying to beat you up is what he said.
Let's go back to the tape. I said I'm not trying to beat you up.
Well, you just said I'm trying to beat you up just now.
I'm trying to get some actual dollars from you.
Right, which I'm not prepared to give you here in this conference right now. I'm not prepared. I didn't know that I would have to come in with the exact numbers to come into this thing.
Blow smoke.
Is that what I'm doing?
Well, yeah. When you don't have any real numbers, you're blowing smoke.
Okay. Why don't you tell me some real numbers?
No, I don't have them. I'm the guy asking the questions.
All right.
I don't have the numbers. I'm not running for office.
That's fine. That's fine. And I told you right up front, right now, I don't have the numbers for you.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what else you want from me.
Well, other than to concede that you're going to probably have to raise taxes to get to that number.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. After you've exhausted everything else, if you have to raise taxes, that's all you got left in your bag. There you go. Yeah. Does anybody disagree? I mean, that's the whole thing. After you've done everything else possible, taxes are your last option.
I've got a question for you.
There you go.
What makes you think that those things aren't already being done?
Oh, because they're not.
Well, that's not true.
So
that's what people believe.
Right.
But there's the state and local, and you keep talking about cities. We're talking about the state. Which
that's fine.
Which is a whole different thing. The fines for driving and that sort of thing.
For texting while driving.
If people can't pay them, they end up in jail, which costs more than the fines that you would collect.
Exactly.
Most every level of government gets a piece of that action for their criminal justice system, and those amounts are distributed.
Right.
And when they get too high, people don't levy those fines.
When they get too high,
those
people
fees.
don't pay. So what do? They end up
go
getting
to
fired
jail.
from their job.
They go to jail.
How does that
or
help?
They get fired. It doesn't help at all.
You got to make it easier for
That's
people
why
to pay
that's
their fines.
not necessarily the best way to do that. And when you talk about collections, every level of government sends fees and fines out for collection. And sometimes they get sued because it gets done so badly. Sometimes they take it back.
Right.
It goes
So
back
she's
and forth.
illustrating my point perfectly that it's all messed up right now. It's very inconsistent.
Hey, Scott, can we get there?
Go ahead.
Thanks. Can we get there without raising taxes?
Well, long term you can, because we have to look at our whole education system. I mean, charter schools, privatization even. I mean, we've got to put everything on the table. I know it was a long time ago, but I went to a Catholic grade school, and man, our tuition was like $15 a year. And I know the church kicked in a lot of it. Well, yeah, it was a long time ago. But I mean, we didn't get any public support at all at that school.
Well, it was a Catholic school.
It was a Catholic school, that's true. But the taxpayer paid us zero. I mean, everything was funded by the church. We can do that here even. And if we have to raise taxes a little bit, it's important. The education of our kids is super important to us.
But should we go to sort of like move toward like an all privately educated student body?
I think every city or municipality ought to have that right to do so. And if that's what has to happen, that's what we have to do. The future is just too important to keep throwing money at schools, and we're not getting anywhere. I mean, we have kids today who are afraid to go to school because they're getting bullied, they're dropping out. Our dropout rates is phenomenal compared to the rest of the nation. And then you got, I mean, I hate to mention Battleground, but suicide, they've been on the news quite a bit about suicide. Teen suicide. Why are we having kids killing each other and killing themselves?
They don't do that stuff in private schools.
I'm not saying they don't, but it is different.
All right. Okay. Go ahead.
Let's see. Sharon, let's see. In 2012, I need to double check my notes here. You advocated for maintaining the sales tax exemption for Oregon voters. Oregon shoppers up here. Where do you stand on that now? It seems to come up every year thanks to our local colleague in the legislature. But
Every year it gets harder to maintain that, and if all I wanted to do was do what pleases the average shopper voter, and there's more voters than there are business people, I'd be where Jim Moeller is on it, where we're the only state in the nation that does that. However, our local businesses have really convincing statistics about how much that would hurt them. The rest of the state, not so much. The eastern part of the state, more exemptions are offered in the Puget Sound area than there are along our border down here with Oregon, and they wouldn't miss it. There's such a big economy out there, and every year there's pressure. And the best I could do was to get the refund exemption.
So, but isn't that a point where our local legislatures really need to fight for us if it would impact us more than anybody else?
Absolutely, and I do everything I can to do that. Offering the compromise was one maneuver, but it had to go over to the Senate, and sometimes you keep fighting when it goes over to the other house.
Scott, what do you think about the sales tax exemption for Oregon shoppers?
I don't think they should have one. We don't get an exemption if we work in Oregon for income tax.
Wouldn't that hurt local business?
I don't think so. I think if somebody's coming over here to buy something, they're coming over to buy something, and an 8% sales tax is not the end of the world for them. Except they're not coming over here to buy big ticket items. They're coming over here to eat lunch or dinner or whatever the case is. Maybe something special that they can't get in Oregon. I mean, let's be honest, they're not crossing the bridge for no reason at all. And it's not because they get away with paying sales tax. And actually, we ought to almost think about maybe lowering our sales tax here so that we stop people in Clark County from crossing the bridge to buy stuff.
But we were just talking about how difficult it is to raise revenue and how we're short anyway.
But you would
raise the
probably
sales
have a
tax?
net gain because, I mean, take Christmas. You can't get to Jansen Beach or to the other side of the airport. I mean, it's packed, and almost every car in there is Washington plates. That's why those businesses are there. They're there because Washingtonians are going over there to save on the taxes. So maybe we lowered the price, we'd stop people from going over there.
Anson?
So aside from the education, this is probably the number one reason I wanted to run for the state representative, is because absolutely an exemption would be the absolute worst thing for our area, and there is absolutely no way you can get around that. I was a business owner, or I am a business owner, but I used to own a retail shop. 50% of my sales came from Portland. And the reason they came from Portland is because they knew that we were about 10% cheaper over here in Vancouver than the Portland equivalent stores. So they would come over here to get a 10% price break, and then we had great customer service as well. But if I had to make them pay the 8 or whatever percent, 8.4% sales tax, then that would have absolutely decimated my business. So what I've done is I've gone through and I've talked to probably about 3 dozen different businesses downtown Vancouver, and that's just a small sample. But every single one of them have stated that if they put the exemption or took the exemption away and Oregon residents had to pay sales tax, it would absolutely destroy their business. They would have either shut down or they would have to lay people off. It would be decimating to our economy here in Vancouver. Once you start laying business or people off, or once you start closing businesses, then we're losing jobs. Once we're losing jobs, we've got less money to spend at the pizza parlors, less money to go to the movies with. I mean, it creates a chain effect that would completely destroy our economy over here.
But can you convince the other legislatures?
Absolutely.
Legislators.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All it takes is the ability to communicate so clearly and tell them and say, listen, I've got all these business owners. They've all written letters. They said, if you take this exemption away, their business is done. They close down, they move over to Portland, and they open up business because all the business from Vancouver is going to go over there right now anyway. This is why I started a program called 100% Vancouver, and it's simply to show, basically to change the mentality of the residents of Vancouver, that you don't have to go over to Portland to save money. You can actually save money by shopping here in Vancouver. It's possible to do that. Not only is it possible, it's probable. So I bought 2 things in Portland in the last 5 months since I did all the number crunching on this. And I found that I'm not only saving time, but I'm saving so much money by staying here in Vancouver and shopping than going over to Target and any of the other places. The only 2 times I've gone over there to shop is when I couldn't get it here in Vancouver because Best Buy shut down because nobody here in Vancouver shopped at Best Buy. And I had a return, so.
How does this 100% Vancouver work?
So basically all it is an education program. So for instance, I set it up to where I take 2 identical products. One was, for instance, at Target over at Jansen Beach, and the other was at Fred Meyer up here in Hazeldale. The Fred Meyer sold a gas grill for $99. The Target store sold it for $109. I bought this gas grill, by the way. That's the reason I know. So if I were to go over to Jansen Beach thinking that I was going to get a better deal and to save 8.4% on sales tax, actually I lost, $1.30 or something like that by going over there. Not only that, but I spent an extra half hour of my time, and I spent extra gas. So those extra BTUs my car are using is it's not hurting or helping our environment any. It's just not a good deal to go over there and shop when you can stay in Vancouver and save a little bit more. So it's a better deal to stay here.
So how are you getting that word out? What are you doing?
Well, that's what the 100% Vancouver thing is for. So what we've done is we've created a program where I've got volunteers going around to all the businesses, and they're telling people, hey, give us an idea of your products and if they're cheaper than the ones over in Portland by however many percent. And if they say, yeah, we're about 10% cheaper, then we can take that information, we can put it out on the website. We've got a 100% Vancouver website that we can put it on and say, hey, you know what, these guys are a little bit less expensive than the people over in Portland, so why not go to them and shop? The whole point of this is to keep the money here in Vancouver. We got $100 million a year that goes over to Jansen Beach and Cascade Station. What's the reason for that? It's because everybody has this mentality that they're going to save and avoid sales tax by going over to Portland. And it's not necessarily the case. You're not necessarily saving anything. You're just spending more time, possibly a little more money, and a lot more wear and tear on your car and gas and all the other things that happen.
So is that 100%Vancouver.com?
No, it's just called 100%Vancouver.com. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it's just. I'm not a legislator. So this is one of those things that I, as a candidate, I was like, maybe I can do something to help before I even get elected, because I don't care about promises. I can come up and I can promise the world, and then, you know, once you get in office, you don't have to do anything according to many of the politicians anyway, or you go completely the opposite of what you said. And that's not my style. I wanted to show people that I'm willing to work now, and I'm willing to make some changes in our economy now if I can. And this is the only way I know how to do it right now, is by helping people understand that you need to keep your money in Vancouver. That's going to help us immensely. What I calculated is that if one person stopped shopping in Portland and spent all their money here, that one person could help supply 5 jobs throughout the year. So at the end of the year,
How do
you'd
you come
spend
up with that number?
well. At the end of the year, you'd spend enough money here that you might have spent in Vancouver that you could help supply 5 people with jobs. Of course, you know, obviously some people spend more than others, so there's no way to quantify that as far as that. I was just shooting from the hip on things based on just people I talked to, based on my own spending habits, you know.
So you came up with this number, but there's no way to quantify the
No,
number.
it's just based on estimating, yeah.
Well,
I did talk to the Department of Revenue here in Washington to get a lot of figures before I did this, and I talked to the Chamber of Commerce, Kelly Parker. She loves the idea. She's like, this is a fantastic idea. She said the buy local programs haven't really worked in the past because it's tried to shame people into shopping here in Vancouver. And she said, but this is different because this is more like, hey, we're not trying to shame you into shopping in Vancouver. What we're trying to do is show you that it's not that good of a deal to shop over in Portland. You can keep your money here, and when you do it here, you know, here we pay B&O taxes, here you pay sales tax, here you pay all the other things, which is going to help our economy locally. So.
Did you have something to say?
Yeah, we started out talking about school funding. One of the biggest drains of school supporting revenue that all the states have is internet sales. And if our federal government would take the action that they've been on the verge of taking for the last 10 years, we would be in a lot better shape with our school funding, and the unfairness of our sales tax situation would also be addressed. It wouldn't, you know, the businesses in Oregon would have to return the sales tax money to where this customer is. You know, a lot of people don't know that before we tweaked the law a few years ago, when we were trying to work with the federal government, and I worked on this issue, if you decided to be a good citizen for your schools and your community, and you went to this Macy's here in our community to buy that couch, chances are the sales tax didn't go to your community, it went to Auburn where the warehouse is. And we had to make some changes in order to make that happen. But the biggest hemorrhage is not over the border with Oregon. The biggest hemorrhage is with internet sales. And as people get more computer savvy and more into convenience and saving gas and working out of their home, they're going to do more internet sales. And unless the federal government asks, all states are going to be in a world of hurt as they try to fund education, infrastructure, and also try to take care of their aging population.
That seems like such a no-brainer to me. I don't understand politically why that hasn't breezed through.
Boom. Thank you.
That's really, you know, I wish I knew, because it seems like a no-brainer to me, but I do know that when I was trying to work for the county to get the little changes just to make our state part of the national compact, where Amazon and some of the big companies that were willing to do this without being forced to, so that we could get a little share of that money voluntarily, we had to sign a compact. It was very hard to get the Republicans to sign the compact. I don't know why.
Well,
It took 6 years to get that done.
the problem with so many bills is they put so many different ideas into the same bill.
That's
so
illegal.
if you don't,
They're
well, that's
kind
kind of what this
If they have
was.
too many ideas.
That's kind
in
of what
them.
this was. The internet thing and the making Oregonian shoppers pay sales tax over here was all in the same bill. So it's like, what am I going to do? Am
No,
I
it
going to go for
wasn't.
the internet
There was
and
no
this
bill
together?
that had those two together.
That's what I read. That's the way it looked.
Prove it. I have no idea.
Well,
what
then
you're
why
talking
didn't it
about.
sail through? That's what I'm wondering.
We're
Did you
ta-
not,
we're
as a
talking- we're
legislator,
talking
did you
about
not have the
several-
ability to do
We're talking
that?
about a bill from 6 or 7 years ago.
Oh, I'm talking
take
about the
care
one
of this.
recently. Yeah, the one you just
the one
recently,
was
the one you
just-
voted on.
was
Yeah.
was a bill that would remove exemptions. The title
Right.
had to do with exemptions.
Right, exactly.
And amending that,
Which
so
also
that
included
so that
internet
it was
sales, right? It also included internet sales.
Somewhat, yeah.
Thank you.
But
There you go.
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sales
All right.
tax streamlining.
Well,
which is
sometimes
whole
I have a
different
hard
thing.
time following your what you're explaining, so I apologize that I didn't
It's
catch
your youth
the.
and lack of experience.
Oh, is
It's
it? It's my doctoral degree. It's I really don't know how to listen or talk, right?
Scott, you're running as an independent. Why is that?
Because I don't believe in everything that either party is doing right now. I mean, I'm fiscally conservative, but socially I'm a little bit on the left there. I mean, everything that I believe everybody has the right to live their life the way they want. But that doesn't mean that we should give them all the money that we can in the government. We need to watch what we spend our money on.
So which caucus would you sit with?
I really haven't thought that out too much, to be honest with you. Again, the social issues, I'm more on the Democratic side, and when it comes to money, as a businessman, I'm very conservative there. Now, you didn't ask me about the education and the $3 billion, okay?
Oh, didn't. Oh.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, but first off, as a businessman, I am asked constantly from my owner to cut our costs. He asked every department, I need 10% back from all of you. Figure out a way to do it. And that's what we need to do in Olympia, is every department has to be given a goal and cut the waste.
Haven't they done that?
I
over
don't
the
think
past
so.
Couple of years.
I don't think
State
so.
spending is way down over the past 6-7 years. So we're
Well, we talked earlier about the roads and the waste and people getting paid for 2 jobs. I mean, that to me is all the government and it's all waste. I'm just saying that there's always 10% more to take out of your budget. You've had to do it here. I've had to do it in my business.
Wait, but if you do that 10 times,
When you work for people, they don't care. They want their money. They want to make money.
no, I understand that, but I was just trying to do the math. If you cut 10%, 10 years in a row, that would be 100%.
Well, not actually, but that's not how the math comes out.
Oh, okay, well, I was never any good at
It'd be
math.
significant,
It's a
but
lot.
what? Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
it'd be a lot.
Yes.
I'd like to say a few things about the budget. One of the ways they've balanced the budget over the last several years is by siphoning off some of the money that would have gone into the capital budget. Capital budget is based on a percentage of our revenue, and it's compartmentalized into a number of different areas. And some of that has been it's like eating your seed corn. You take away some of those long-term investments, which in a home would be the roof. Painting, keep the siding in good shape and that sort of thing, and you put it into daily operations. You pay your electric bill, you pay for the plumber and that sort of thing. And that probably would continue, and that would be one piece of balancing the budget. The big pieces of no new taxes money that are available are any revenue that we get from marijuana, and if the federal government does something about internet sales. Several years back when things were tighter, we cut some of the hours that our caregivers give to seniors and disabled people who are living in their homes. And what that meant was that they could not do their laundry. They couldn't wash those sheets when they needed to be washed unless they did it on their own time. Those folks work 10 years and make $10 an hour. To provide those services for our parents and our grandparents. This last 2 years, we restored some of those hours, and those are the kinds of things that we cut when we have to put more money into one thing rather than another. And those are the kinds of cuts that we're going to be looking at if we don't find other ways of funding our services. And there will, nobody really thinks that the Supreme Court is going to order my colleagues and I to go to jail, but that has been raised as an issue. The economy is slowly improving, so it may not be as bad as it looks right now. They will delay, the budget writers will delay certain things. They will cut back on certain things, and those of us that are in each of our caucuses will have to decide whether that budget is close enough to where our values are. And my values are that we need to keep improving our educational system. We need to do it efficiently. We need to try to keep our promises. We need to address our senior citizens and our elderly people and our disabled people, because it's more expensive to have them in homes than it is aging in place. When I ran for office over 20 years ago, an old person was in their 70s. I've met people door knocking that are over 100 years old, living at home with a little bit of help. I met a person whose daughter had put a sign on with her phone number of, if you don't get an answer from Grandpa, call me at this number. And I've talked to people that are taking care of an aging parent and the people next door. You know, people are taking care of each other, but it's a pretty thin safety net. And, you know, we're going to be looking at, you know, a lot of different revenue sources. Our park system, people are finding that the independent providers that that sign people up for their driver's licenses curry favor at the counter by saying, you know, if you don't pay for parks, you can save a few dollars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I introduced a bill that the Senate killed to encourage marketing and to work with the auto dealers to provide free parks passes when they sell a Subaru or an SUV. There's a lot of things that a lot of people are doing. I mean, people are tearing their hair out trying to come up with ideas. And some of the best ideas I've had are from constituents. I haven't heard from these folks, but I have done bills based on good ideas that I've gotten from constituents. And that's why we have telephones and internet.
Let's talk a little bit, if we could, about minimum wage. Governor Inslee said that in the next session he will propose at least support an increase in the state's minimum wage. As most people know, the state of Washington has the highest minimum wage in the country. So I am interested in your views on increasing the minimum wage here. Let's start with Scott.
It's a tax increase. The more people get paid, the more money they have to spend. So that's the real gist of it. But actually, the minimum wage, in my mind, and I've changed my mind in the past on this because I always thought that people were taking advantage of them. But the minimum wage today is really the maximum wage for jobs. I mean, if you go to work for McDonald's, you get the minimum wage. If they know that you're not going to leave them to go to Burger King because you're not going to make any more money, it's a minimum wage job. So that whole group of people, they're always making the same amount of money. It wasn't intended to be a family living wage. It was intended to be a starting salary for people. And that still needs to be that way. But if McDonald's and the rest of the fast food chains had to pay the going market price to keep labor, would it be the minimum wage, or would they have to pay $12, $14 an hour to get people in the door? Right now, those people are kind of locked into that wage.
Okay, but before I move on, I'm not 100% sure. Was that you would support an increased minimum wage or not support it?
Not support it.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a son who works at a job. He got the job when he's 17, and right now he makes more than minimum wage. And I can't imagine any family living on what he makes. I mean, I can't imagine a single mother trying to raise a family on what my son makes, and he makes more than minimum wage. I'm in favor of a minimum wage increase. I think it should stay right in line with inflation, with the cost of living. But at the same time, it's difficult because when you start dictating to companies who are already on a paper-thin margin, you have to pay your employees even more. Then what's their choice? Their choice is also to cut. So I am in favor of a minimum wage increase as long as it's not drastic and as long as it makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sharon?
I'm definitely in favor of it. I've looked at the data, and anytime the minimum wage has gone up, no matter how much, it hasn't not hurt the economy. Places with high minimum wages do just fine. The income disparity between the top of the pile and the bottom of the pile is huge, and there's a growing body of data and bipartisan recognition that this is not healthy for our economy and for our future and our recovery from the recession. Giving people more money to spend is good for the economy.
Doug, any other questions?
Yeah, there's been some talk, and I know this isn't necessarily an issue that you have thought a lot about, but Commissioner Medor is suggesting that an I-5, or not an I-5, but a new bridge in East County would make a lot of sense.
Right.
Where are you on the bridge replacement idea, both the I-5 bridge and maybe East County bridge?
I believe in two new bridges, one replacing the I-5 bridge, and then one, we need a westbound 205 coming from Ridgefield, tying in to the northwest areas, getting the port traffic over there. They talked about that 30-some years ago, and it should have been done. That's the only way you're going to ease the congestion through I-5, Portland and Vancouver. You get the trucks over that side of the mountain.
And you would support both those?
I was, yes. I don't know about the light rail part, but yes, the bridge needs replaced. It's old.
So you don't know about the light rail, you would or would not be in favor of light rail?
Light rail, I don't see any need for it right now. We have no infrastructure in Clark County, let alone Vancouver, even to support it.
Anson?
I would like to see a west side bridge put in before an east side bridge, but I see the value of having both bridges there. I've also heard that he wants to do it in 5 years, which seems heavenly optimistic. It seems almost impossible to do it in 5 years. Not that I'm the guy that's going to say, hey, you can't do the impossible. I think you should. I'm 41 years old, and I didn't start school till I was actually 30 years old, so a lot of people would have said that's impossible to do what I've done. So I don't know. I would like to see both bridges, and then for the I-5 bridge, we can build a bridge there without light rail and still save lots of money and still make it tall enough so that, you know, businesses downriver don't have to be shut down or subsidized in the future, you know. There's a smart way to do this, and the way we had it going was not a smart way to do it.
Sure.
I think that we need to have a new plan to replace the I-5 bridge. I'm comfortable with light rail. Without the light rail component, there is no federal money for a bridge, and both the state and the federal government don't have the pieces together for a transportation package. Somebody's got to pay for it, and the way it is now, if we had to replace the bridge, the money that would have paid for the light rail would have paid for a large part of the cost, and it's hard for people to wrap their brain around. But probably more importantly, I'm continuing to have conversations with people that were very much against the bridge and the light rail, even though I happen to like light rail, because I believe that no solution is going to come forward at any point in time unless the legislative bodies are involved at an earlier level, other than just knowing that it's happening out there. I had the good fortune to have some leadership training through the Council of State Governments, and what I realized was that there's huge regional cross-jurisdictional issues that in every part of our country that can't be solved. And the days of people just rubber stamping things are long gone. No legislative body is going to, sit back while a long, expensive process goes through, and then just say, oh yes, I'm going to throw in $350 million or $450 million at the end of the process, especially when some of the people that even were in that process are no longer alive. I mean, the process took too long, it was too complicated, and it did not involve the legislative bodies in a meaningful way, and they do change. But I'm still at the table with Ann and with Liz and with some of the folks in Oregon who weren't crazy about this bridge. And I'm doing that because I believe that that's important. If we're ever going to come up with a solution, we've got to be at the table, even though some of us are kind of tired and feel pretty beat up about it.
Right. Anything else? Okay, we'll go around and have some closing remarks. one, if there's anything important that we didn't touch upon, feel free to include that. And also, I'd be curious about what kind of support and or endorsements have you received and support from the public. We'll start with Sharon.
Well, I've been spending a lot of time on energy issues, even before this oil issue came up. A couple days ago, I was in a flame retardant jumpsuit, looking into natural gas reserves, of which there are huge quantities that I had no idea about. I think that one of the things that's going to be my priority, other than some of the things I've been working on, like consumer protection issues for senior citizens, but we're going to have to partner more with the federal government, and I believe that we can stop the oil terminal from forever changing the character of our community and losing the ground that we've gained with our waterfront. But we're going to have a federal energy policy that takes a real good look at what we are doing with our energy resources and our train situation. Under the Reagan administration, the railroads were essentially deregulated. It's coming by train because they can, because they don't have to ask permission. And so the federal government has a place in making sure that those train shipments are safe. I'm a huge fan of trains. I helped save, I think, the train that you've worked so hard to save and keep viable, which was our former Chilachi Prairie train. I'm a great believer in using that resource, and we've invested. Taxpayers have helped pay for the tracks, and we've helped pay for the waterfront. And the state won't get paid back unless that waterfront is successful. I think we can have both, but we're going to have to work better together. And so my goal is to use my position to work with the Port of Kamaswashugal, the Port of Vancouver, and the cities along the river to come up with more of a regional economic development strategy that doesn't endanger our communities, because I believe that that's a serious risk. And I believe that we have a right to shape our future, that we have a right to decide what kind of community are we going to live in, and what kind of jobs are we going to aim for, and then we have to aim for them. We can't just be passive about it.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, endorsements or support?
Oh, endorsements, the usual suspects, the Auto Dealers Association. I had the realtors endorse me twice. I haven't gone through their process yet. Lots of labor unions, and then lots of independent business people. John Rudy, Bob Schaefer, a lot of the local people, Jan Oliva, local business people, and a lot of grassroots people that have helped me a lot. I couldn't have done this without them.
Thank you. Anson, final thoughts? Any issues we haven't touched upon?
Well, no, I think you've done a really good job touching all these issues. I'm not a politician, and I hope I'm never a politician like that. I didn't go to school for politics, and I didn't work as a lobbyist, and but gosh darn it, I've got some great ideas, and I've got a really great history of proving that I can do things that I think a lot of people can't do. And I'm sorry if she thinks that 41 years old is too young to have good ideas and to make a change, but yes, I am 41 years old. I don't think that's too young. Inexperienced, I've got more life experience than you can shake a stick at. I've owned 3 businesses. I've got 3 sons, ages 18, 15, and 11. I've done so much in the 41 years I've had in life, and I think this is a next opportunity for me to take that to the next level and see if I can do more to help other people. The other thing that I've got going for me is that I'm new to this whole thing, and I don't see that as a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. Even though I'm a man, and not too long ago Sharon was being interviewed, and she said that men are only in politics for self-serving purposes, and so that they can have the opportunity to have that title, and I don't think that's true. I think that both Scott and I are here for the right reasons. I think Jim Moeller isn't there for self-serving purposes, or neither are the other male people who are in politics. We're here to help people. We've got a specific vision in mind, and I think I've got the educational history, I've got the verve, I've got the energy to get out there and do what needs done. As you can see, I can hold my own in a conversation, and I'm willing to go to the extra mile to make sure that I make an absolutely amazing positive change in this state. So thank you. I appreciate your opportunity. As for endorsements, right, I've never held office before, so I'm getting skipped over for all the endorsements. So whatever, maybe next time. Other than the people. I get all my donations from normal people, everyday people. No PACs are going to endorse me. No PACs are going to, not yet anyway. They haven't given me any money, so I don't have that going for me either. So, I got dental offices that love me. I got cleaning companies that love me and endorse me, and security companies, and lots of mental health people and businesses and clients that love me. But, as far as the giant, GMC is not going to endorse me or any of that nonsense. So.
Great, thank you. Scott?
Well, I have no endorsements either, and I'm not seeking any. The biggest thing that we really didn't talk a lot about is the oil trains that I want to bring up, and they can be stopped. I don't know why even the Columbian hasn't tackled this, but somebody needs to ask Tesoro why they have 2,200 acres in Martinez, California, and they're not taking trains direct. From what I understand, it's a permitting issue. They haven't actually come out and said that, but it sounds like it's easier. They think they can get permits through Washington a lot easier. There are better routes from the train standpoint, running down through Denver and west, than there is going through Pasco and the western and the northern route with the BNSF. The BNSF right now is in a state of disaster. They are waiting to have an accident. I am a large shipper on the BNSF. I mean, I shouldn't say large, but we do over 100 cars a month with them. It's taking us 30 days to move cars from here to Dallas, here to Chicago. This is their premium service. JB Hunt, which most of you are familiar with, is a container shipper. They've had to add 2 to 3 days transit on their trains because these trains are getting delayed. They are parking trains so that the oil trains can run through. They're just a situation, a disaster waiting to happen. They can't manage all this volume. I think our federal government can make them go a different route. There's no reason, and even Tesoro hasn't answered me. I've asked her the question as to, being in logistics again, why would you want to take things into Vancouver, unload it, reload it onto a vessel, risk the whole, west coast of the United States just to get oil down there? And most of this oil is being refined and going to be shipped to Latin America. It's not going to benefit anybody here in the States. They've said that at different meetings. And we need to ask those questions. And I have not gotten an answer from Tesoro on that stuff. As far as the terminal itself goes, I am sure that Savage will build one of the safest facilities you possibly can buy or build. But I don't trust the BNSF at all. And as Sharon said, we have given them millions of dollars to help them. And they haven't done much. And we need to understand that Mr. Buffett owns them, and he also owns ConocoPhillips, who is one of the Bakken people.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.